morning, everybody. Now it's my turn to say Happy Father's Day. I want to say Happy Father's Day to all of the dads out there in the room, but I also want to say Happy Father's Day to the men who may not have been our dads, but who stepped in and took that place. And so it would be remiss of me this morning to not say Happy Father's Day to you, Dennis. Thank you so much for being a dad to me. So as most of you know, if you've been here with us, is this really loud? Okay. As most of you know, if you've been here with us, we've been in a series called Encounters with Jesus. I, from the very beginning, was very excited about this series because it is a series about Jesus encountering people in the Bible. Does anyone ever wonder who Jesus is and what he is like? Or do you have these images in your head of he's a stern guy who's waiting for you to make a mistake? Or maybe he's put all these rules in place so that you don't mess up. And if you do, he's going to cast you into hell. Or maybe it's his grace is so abounding that you can live however you want to live and it doesn't matter because his grace is going to cover you. Well, we all have these kind of ideas, but the only way to know who God is and what he is like is by looking at his word. And remember, Jesus said, when you have seen me, you have seen the Father, you have seen God. So I have loved this series because this is a chance for us to know, not based on what anyone else says, but based on the word of God, who he is and what he is like. And that's an opportunity that I have this morning to communicate a little bit of who Jesus is and what he is like. What I want to do this morning is, spoiler alert, I'm going to tell you the 3 questions that I want us to answer about Jesus this morning. We're learning who he is and what he's like. So, the 3 questions that I want us to cover this morning in our passage that we're going to look at is, how far will he go? How far will he go? The second thing is, how strong is he? How strong is he? And the third and final thing I want to look at is, how fully can he restore? And I believe that we can get the answer to all 3 of those things in the passage that we're going to look at. I chose this, and if you know me, this is weird, but I chose to do the encounter of Jesus when he encounters the man with the legion of demons. And demons are not my jam. So the fact that I chose this story is an odd thing, but it really has moved me, especially even more as I'm digging deep into it, and I hope that it can affect you this morning as well. So before we get into our passage, right before our passage is in Mark 5, 1 through 20, but right before that in Mark 4, Jesus is talking to his disciples, and he says in Mark 4:35, let's go over to the other side of the lake. And in a minute, I'm going to tell you why this was such a wild and crazy thing for Jesus to suggest. And this is where, right after he says, let's go to the other side of the lake, this is where the famous story happens. All the disciples are in the boat, the storm is raging, and Jesus is sleeping. That's right, he's sleeping. The disciples are freaking out, like, don't you even care? And they go and wake him up. And Jesus gets up and he says, quiet, be still, and the storm stops. So Jesus is like, let's go to the other side of the lake. They get in the boat, and the storm happens. Jesus calms the storm. And now we find ourselves in Mark 5, chapter 1. They came to the other side of the sea into the region of the Gerasenes. Now, this might not seem like a big deal, but what we may not understand about this passage and what Jesus is suggesting in this passage is something that probably caused the disciples to look at each other and say, I don't want to do that. No, thank you. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to give you a little bit of history of the Decapolis and what's going on. So there's this little point in time of history. You know the white page in your Bible between the Old Testament and the New Testament? There's that white page. Some scholars call it the silent years, but really God wasn't being silent. That's called the intertestamental period. And in that time of 400 years on the scene comes Alexander the Great. Anyone ever heard of that guy? And he has a special way, I see my guys back there, he has a special way of what he goes to do in conquering these cities. He's going and conquering these cities. He has two options, and he's kind of brilliant. He has two options. One option is I can go in and I can conquer with the sword, and I can, by brute force, take over these lands. But sometimes you get taken over in the battle. The other option is, Alexander the Great, is I'm going to go into this land and I am going to give you every desire that you could possibly want. If it looks good, look at it. If it tastes good, eat it. If you want to touch it, touch it. If you want to sleep with it, sleep with it. If you want to smell it, smell it. Eat it, eat it. He just said, I'm going to give these people over to all of their fleshly desires and to everything that they possibly could want. How do you think this went? Have you ever given into the good old sage advice, follow your heart? And has it ever led you to an unpleasant place? Our hearts, they don't always have the greatest desires, do they? And I'm sure it won't take but a second if you begin to imagine, what would I do if I could just YOLO, no consequences, do whatever I want, give into whatever desire I want? Likely, the thing that you're giving into isn't very pleasant. I don't think it was really like a utopia type of place. In one of the commentaries I was reading, they kind of referred to it like Vegas. So whatever happens in Vegas, why do you guys know that? Whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. So it's kind of likened to that. So can you imagine a place like that where people are just giving in to everything they want? My little brother got married in Las Vegas. No shade to Vegas. Don't come for me if you love Vegas. I know actually Pastor Cody and Carissa vacationed there and loved it for all the food and kid activities. But when I went to Vegas, my brother got married there, and I felt so slimy and grimy and gross. I'm going to be honest with you. I got a cheap hotel room. How do you think a cheap hotel room in Vegas is? Not very lovely. So I get into this room. There's a yellow or a white leather couch. Then there's a tub, there's a bed, and then there's this big tub with the mirrors on it. Now, who wants to look at themselves in the bathtub? I don't know, but I certainly don't. Nor was I about to get into that bathtub. So it was so gross. I was like, oh my gosh, this is not pleasant. Then we have to go down to one of the restaurants to have dinner, the rehearsal dinner. And I mean, basically, I was the one who stood out because it's like I didn't have any piercings, tattoos. You know, I was covered. And so it's just this wild, crazy where I was. Again, if you love Vegas, yay for you. I don't. But anyway, so it's kind of like this wild place. I think you can understand what I'm talking about. And the Jews of that day actually referred to like the Decapolis, the other side of the lake, as the kingdom of darkness. And where they were, Capernaum, Nazareth, Bethlehem, that was the kingdom of light. And that's where all the good Jews were, the other side, the Gentiles like me, on the other side of the lake doing whatever I wanted, however I wanted. So the kingdom of darkness and the kingdom of light. So now maybe we can understand a little bit better when Jesus says, hey guys, we're going to go to the other side of the lake. It kind of was a little bit like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. And so one of the books I read, I loved her quote. She said, you do not, about this particular verse, you do not expect a holy rabbi of Israel to want to go to the other side of the lake. If you are a synagogue-loving, Torah-abiding, God-fearing Jew, you don't go there. You don't go there. I was even talking to Pastor Cody. If you guys don't know, he's a bit of a history nerd. I'm not. So all of this, I had to learn myself. He just naturally loves it. And so I started to talk to him about the message and what I had learned about the Decapolis. And he really put it succinctly, and I loved it. I told him I was going to use it. He said, no good Jewish boy would ever be found going to the Decapolis. No good Jewish boy would ever go to the other side of the lake. So when Jesus tells them, let's go to the other side of the lake, as you can imagine, they're probably like side-eyeing each other like, what? Is he really wanting to do this? What's gotten into this guy? Like, Jesus, he's always throwing those curveballs, isn't he? So he tells them, let's go to the other side of the lake. But we know about Jesus and all of these encounters that he always has a plan. And he is about to encounter someone who's in desperate need, though the guy may not even know he's in desperate need. So, how far will Jesus go to accomplish what he wants to accomplish in you and me and whoever? How far will he go? He will go all the way to the kingdom of darkness for you and for me. All the way. Even to Vegas, even to a gross white leather couch. He'll go all the way. That's how far he will go. To the kingdom of darkness. And we're going to see a bit more clearly as this passage unfolds just all that entails. But I kind of have a little interesting, funny story. Anyone like stories? No? So I have a funny, interesting story. Have you ever faced something and you're like, you know what, this is not for me, not my cup of tea, I can't handle it, this is too big for me. I don't know what the thing is for you, but I'm going to tell you a fun little story of where I found myself saying, I'm not doing this. So, as some of you know, about a year ago, I bought a property 5 years ago, and then about a year ago, finally got a modular home on it. And part of what was the work that was being done, I had help with from my family. And we did all the things we could do ourselves, like built a little deck going up to the stairs and that kind of thing. So we're all up there one day working. It's super hot. It's in the summer. And I'm told, because I'm super helpful on a job site, just so you know, if you have any construction that needs to be done. And they're like, look, you go get this tool from Dennis's garage. And the way that they tell me to get a tool is kind of embarrassing. It's like, okay, this is where it's at, third shelf down. It looks like this. It's about 3.5 inches long. It has whatever it has on it, a rope around it. And sometimes they'll even give me a picture, because that's how ill-equipped I am in the tool world. So I'm like, great, I have a job to do. So I get in the golf cart and I jam on down. And I blaze into where Dennis's garage is, and I see a snake. And it's a long guy. I mean, he's a big snake. Okay, and I see it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, naturally, right? So I'm in the cart, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So I know that they're up there working on my house, so I call Dennis. Hannah answers his phone, and I'm like, there's a snake here. Can you come and get it? Send him. I'm waiting for them to come down, waiting and waiting. So I'm like, well, Keith lives right there. I'm going to call Keith. So I call Keith. There's the snake. Hey, these pictures don't do it justice. Here's the snake. I call Keith, and I'm like, are you home? I think there's a rattlesnake here. And he's like, no, he's flying or whatever he's doing. He's like, well, is it a rattlesnake? And I said, I don't know. And he's like, well, send me a picture. So I send him a picture. I'm still waiting for my rescue. And I sent him a picture. He calls me right back, and he's like, yeah, it's a rattlesnake. So this is what you need to do. You need to get a shovel and chop its head off, or go into my dad's house, get a gun, and there's a special bullet that you shoot snakes with, and you can get that. And to which I responded, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. By this time, I see Dennis and Gina blazing down. There was a miscommunication. They thought I meant I was going to Gina's house, and I was really at Dennis's. That's why it took them 37 minutes to get there. It was probably really like 37 seconds, but it felt long. So they come blazing down. Gina gets out with a gun, a rifle. There she is. She gets out with a gun, this little dainty thing. She gets out with a gun, and I promise you, this weirdo has never been more excited. She's like, can I shoot it, Dad? Can I shoot it? And he's like, well, if you got a shot. Now, if you can see behind there, there's all those wood piles right there. The snake had gone under that. At this point, I'm like 37 feet away. There's no way I'm getting close to this. And Gina's over there, can I shoot it, Dad? Can I shoot it? Weirdo. And then he's like, well, if you got a shot. And then all of a sudden, bam! Did you get him? Yeah, I think I got him. She goes over there, gets the snake out. She shot the head of the snake off. Really quick side note, this is the clear difference. I've lived here in the mountains for 20 years. This is a clear difference of a born and bred mountain girl and a city transplant. Because there's just no way I was doing that. But immediately when I see this snake, I know that this is way too big for me. When I came in and saw this boa constrictor python, I was like, I cannot. This is no way for me. This showdown, and I'm losing, and the snake is winning. So I had to call in someone that knew and had stronger hands than I did, because I wasn't about to face off with that. And it kind of reminds me of that's a fun little story that kind of reminds me of this face-off that's about to happen. What happens when the Son of God comes from the kingdom of light on the other side of the lake, goes over and steps foot onto the kingdom of darkness? What happens? In Mark 5:2, when he, being Jesus, got out of the boat, immediately a man from the tombs with an unclean spirit met him. And I want to take a second to look at this man and the circumstances in which Jesus finds this man in the kingdom of darkness in Vegas with the white leather couch. Okay, so Mark 5, verse 3, starting in verse 3. He lived, this man, lived among the tombs, and no one was able to bind him anymore, not even with a chain. He had often been bound with shackles and chains, and the chains had been torn apart by him, and the shackles broken into pieces, and no one was strong enough to subdue him. Constantly, night and day, he was screaming among the tombs and in the mountains and cutting himself with stones. This man was so far gone, living in the tombs, he was so far gone that even the kingdom of darkness could not handle him. He was too much for Vegas. Can you imagine going to Vegas and Vegas being like, that guy is too much for us? Even the kingdom of darkness couldn't handle this man. So what does this man, this crazed man, do when he sees Jesus stepping into the kingdom of darkness? Mark 5, 6 through 13. Seeing Jesus from a distance, he ran up and bowed down before him. And shouting with a loud voice, he said, "What business do you have with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I implore you by God, don't torment me." For he had already been saying to him, "Come out of the man, you unclean spirit." And he, being Jesus, was asking him, "What is your name?" And the man said, "My name is Legion, for we are many." And the man, he begged Jesus earnestly not to send him out of the region. Now there were a large herd of pigs feeding nearby in the mountains, and the demons begged him, saying, "Send us into the pigs so that we may enter them." And Jesus gave them, being a legion of demons, Jesus gave them permission. And coming out, the unclean spirits entered the pig, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the sea. 2,000 of them, and they were drowned in the sea. In this passage, we can see that 2,000 demons are bowing down to Jesus. They identify who Jesus is, and they bow down, and they beg him for permission. And Jesus gives them permission. Do you want to know how strong he is? Do you want to know how strong his hands are? Strong enough to step into the kingdom of darkness and give 2,000 demons permission. What darkness couldn't contain, he could. by just his word. It's pretty incredible. There are no hands that are stronger that can dispel darkness like his hands. And in Mark 4:41, the people were terrified. Or I'm sorry, going back in Mark 4, remember when I began our passage and I told you they were on the Sea of Galilee? And remember, the disciples are freaked out. And Jesus wakes up from his nap and he calms the sea. And in Mark 4:41 it says, and they were terrified, asking one another, who is this that even the wind and the sea obey him? Who is this that even the wind and sea obey him? And you notice even in our passage when Jesus gets out, it never tells us that the disciples got out. Maybe they knew better. They're like, I'm passing on this. I don't know. But we never see them getting out the boat. It's a scary thing for sure. Has anyone ever read the Chronicles of Narnia? Anybody? I'm not a super big fantasy reader. It's just not, I love to read novels. The fantasy genre is just not my jam. But I did read the first book of the Chronicles of Narnia, not the following 37 after it, but I read the first one. And in the first one, they're talking about Aslan, and one of the kids, I don't know who, if you're a Narnia nerd, you probably know who, but I don't. One of the kids asks the beaver about Aslan, the lion, who represents Jesus. Is he safe? Is he safe? Is he safe? Said Mr. Beaver. Didn't you hear what Mrs. Beaver tells you? Who said anything about being safe? Of course he isn't safe, but he is good. He's the king, I tell you. And it reminds me of this. Is he safe? No, he's powerful. He can do it all. But my goodness, he is good. And his hands are good. And he comes to do good. Do you want to know who Jesus is and what he's like? Probably not safe, but he's good. Anytime that we see Jesus' light encounter the kingdom of darkness, and even when we see it in our own lives, if we've walked with the Lord any amount of time, we know when we see it in our own lives, his light will always win. There is no darkness that's too dark. In John 1:4 it says, in him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and yet the darkness did not overcome it. He's the light that shines in our darkness, but the darkness will never, ever overcome him. Getting to the final portion of our passage, and the last question I kind of want to cover for us this morning is, how fully can he restore? Have you ever found yourself in a mess and you're like, there is no going back from this? Like, I've gotten myself into this place. I've drifted myself into this place. I've, been frivolous and gotten myself into this place. I've done that and I shouldn't have done that, and there's no going back. How is this garbage ever going to be anything but garbage in my story? I've been there. I don't know if you have, but it's hard and it's awful. And you wonder, can it ever be good again? Can it ever be good again? Can this brokenness ever be anything other than brokenness? So I want us to look at Mark 5:15. And this is when the herdsmen are coming back. They left after the pigs go into the water, and the herdsmen, they're coming back. And when they came to Jesus, they saw the man who had been, as in no longer, but had been demon-possessed by the legion of demons, sitting there, dressed, and in his right mind. This man that even the kingdom of darkness could not contain is sitting there, dressed, and in his right mind. And they were afraid. Naturally, I would be too. Is he safe? No. But he is good. This is the very same guy. Remember when these herdsmen leave? The demons are cast into the sea. The herdsmen run off to go tell everyone what had just happened. They're leaving a demon-possessed man. When they bring all the people back, they are coming to a man who is sitting at the feet of Jesus. Do you know what it means to sit at the feet of Jesus? In the Gospel of Luke, it actually says he was sitting at the feet of Jesus. This is the posture of a disciple, of a follower. So they go to they leave this guy one way, they come back, and he is now sitting at the feet of Jesus, fully clothed and in his right mind. What I love about this passage, because we all have, I hope and pray we all have, a personal relationship with the Lord. And if you don't, today's a great day to start. But what I love is we don't know what happened between the time these demons go into the water and the herdsmen come back. We don't know what conversation was had. We don't know if there were tears. We don't know what happened with this man and Jesus. We don't get to see that part of the encounter. And some things for us are so deep and so difficult when we work through them. Not everybody gets to be privy to that part of our journey. Not everyone gets to see that place. But when we encounter Jesus, what they can see when they come back to us is that we're changed and that we're different. This man encounters Jesus. And what I'm curious about, another amazing thing about this passage in my reading is, where did the clothes come from? The guy's naked. In Luke, it tells us he's naked. Where did the clothes come from? How is this guy fully clothed? Some scholars teach that Jesus brought the clothes with him. I want to believe that so badly, that he brought the clothes with him for this man. He was on a mission, going as far as the kingdom of darkness. He was on a mission for a man to go and get him. Somehow the man got clothed, and I love that part. And naturally, the people of this land, of the Gerasenes, of the Decapolis, they are terrified, as we said, and they want Jesus to leave. So, he does. Jesus leaves. And in Mark 5:18 through 20, I want to talk about what happens after Jesus leaves. But isn't it funny that he goes to the kingdom of darkness, has this one singular encounter, and then he leaves? It kind of makes you think that the whole reason he went there was for this man, for this one man. Again, reminding us that's how far he will go. So in Mark 5:18 through 20, let's see how fully Jesus restores. And as he was getting into the boat, Jesus, the man who had been demon-possessed, was begging him that he might accompany him. And Jesus didn't let him, but he said to him, "Go home to your people and report to them what great things the Lord has done for you and how he had mercy on you. Go home and report to your people." And this man went away, and he began to proclaim in the Decapolis, in Vegas, white leather couches, he goes there and tells everyone what a great thing Jesus has done for him, and everyone was amazed because they could see this is the guy who we couldn't even contain ourselves, who was so wild and so out there, and he's completely different, and he's saying it's because of what Jesus has done for him. How fully will he restore? You're not broken enough. You are not broken enough that he cannot restore you. You are not far enough that he won't come for you. We know he says he came to seek and save the lost, to seek to look for and to save the lost. How far will he go? You're not far enough. How strong is he? Your situation isn't too much beyond his hands, you in his hands. You're not far enough. Your situation isn't big enough. Your darkness isn't dark enough, and you are not broken enough for what he can do to restore you fully and completely. I'm going to invite our worship team up, and we're going to conclude this morning. You know, Pastor Terry, whenever we're speaking, he'll always ask us, what song do you want at the end? And right away, even before he had asked me, I knew I wanted the song, Here in Your Presence. Because I don't know about you, you could be walking with the Lord for 5 minutes or 50 years. But I know in my journey with the Lord, there have been times where I've been in a dark place and I needed him to find me. And I know that there have been times in my journey with the Lord where I was so weak and couldn't do it myself. And I needed his hands to come and help me, be my strength. I don't know about you or your journey, but I know for me, I've had brokenness that I desperately need his hands to restore. And I'm inviting all of us, and myself too, to encounter Jesus this morning, to encounter his presence, and to know that anytime we encounter Jesus, we change. Everything changes when we encounter Jesus. I'm going to invite you to stand. We have prayer partners at the side of the auditorium. If you need prayer for anything this morning, go to them. And even more than that, I want us to encounter Jesus this morning as we worship him, as we spend time in his presence. May we be forever changed because of who